Hailing from the Jersey Shore and raised as athletes, the Airey Bros have always shared a passion for physical culture, athletic performance, and human optimization, always striving to be the strongest versions of themselves, mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Along the way, they've met some pretty amazing humans and have had some pretty epic adventures. The intention of Airey Bros Radio is to showcase these amazing people and the impact that they've had on them, and to share tips, tricks, and hacks so that you can win each day, every day.
You're listening to Airey Bros Radio. Be there or be square, because it's all killer, no filler.
I kind of an eclectic background. I have a master's in biogeochemistry, and I've run several research labs over the years. The C60 molecule, it's a carbon molecule, 60 atoms shaped exactly like a little soccer ball. When they tested on animals for toxicity, it essentially doubled their lifespan by completely preventing the occurrence of cancers, cognitive decline, and other diseases associated with aging. So I went looking to find other things that can help protect against radiation. And I found this stuff called carbon 60. Which is, besides the actual name, science name is Buckminsterfullerene. And people may remember he was a polymath. He used to make those geodesic domes back in the 60s and 70s. And what's really interesting, in the late 70s, he actually predicted this molecule would be found and it would have great health benefits. C60 is also not created by AI to be nanobots to take over your mind so you can be controlled by aliens. They basically manufacture C60 the same way it's made in giant red stars. That's actually the origin. I don't know if you remember high school chemistry. C60 is expensive. The sublimation process is really expensive. It's more expensive by weight than gold. This is Ken from C60 Purple Power, and you listen to Airey Bros Radio. Okay, well, what C60 is? Well, if you look in the screen behind me, that's sort of like a representation of the C60 molecule. It's a carbon molecule, 60 atoms shaped exactly like a little soccer ball. It's kind of like a hollow, and it has a hollow on the inside. And we'll get to it later, but it actually gets its charge. I don't know if people remember their high school chemistry class. Most atom molecules will get a positive charge by giving up an electron into the environment. C60 is different. It actually gets a charge by pulling hydrogen ions inside of its cage-like structure. So it could actually store 6 hydrogen ions inside of that, positive hydrogen ions, and then it uses it to neutralize oxidative radicals, so it can reset itself again and again and again. So that's what C60 is, and that's the secret, and why it's been characterized as several hundred times more powerful than conventional antioxidants.
And how did you stumble upon C60?
Well, it was kind of a long story. I was actually running the metal oxygen fusion reactor project. And one of the things is, when we did the research on it, pretty much every one of the doctors who had done similar research was dead. The late doctor this, the late doctor that. So I didn't want my team and myself end up on that statistic. So I went looking to find other things that can help protect against radiation. And I found this stuff called carbon 60. And it's also, the scientific name is Buckminsterfullerene. And what they did experiments where they give, like, one set of rats would get C60. The control group didn't get any C60. And then they'd hit them with a fatal dose of radiation. And pretty much the control group that didn't get C60 would all die. And none of the C60 rats would die. So when I heard about that, I said, whoa, let's get some C60. So I got C60 from a couple sources. And then I, myself and my crew started taking it. And that was, and during the experiment, which came out successful, but I kind of kept taking it afterwards. I had a little left over, and it got rid of, like, the afternoon blahs, and I think my mental clarity was bigger. And then about 7 to 8 months after starting it, I went to my eye doctor, my optometrist, and my DRUs, or dry macular degeneration, had completely disappeared.
And talking about doing some experiments with it prior, what was your background before you started C60?
Well, I kind of an eclectic background. I have a master's in biogeochemistry, and I've run several research labs over the years. So that's kind of my research side of things. I've also taught school and done a few other things in that sense. And so that's kind of my background. And it's probably the research labbing that's kind of how I came to it, because I was looking for radiation protectant. and it was amazing. And then afterwards, I started making it for friends and family. I have a friend, Gary Rodriguez. He was the electrical engineer on the MOXY project. And after I discovered what had gone with me, he had actually developed wet macular degeneration, which means you have all kinds of lesions in the back of your eyeball. And we have a little channel on YouTube called C60 Purple Power. And if you go to the episode's Eyes on C60, you can actually see his before and after pictures. After using C60 Purple Power MCT coconut oil, about a tablespoon a day for about a year, completely healed up his eyes. And there was no more lesions at all. You can see the before and after pictures. He generously allowed us to share those online with people. And it also got rid of his type 2 diabetes.
This is going to sound crazy. Maybe it won't sound crazy, but I got a new contact prescription in April. And since I've been taking the C60, I've noticed it in the last, I'd say 2, maybe 3 weeks, that when I put my contacts in, it's almost as if it's like the wrong prescription. Like it seems weird. And then after probably about, let's say maybe 30 minutes, or when I go outside and I start doing things and I'm looking further, it starts to kind of clear up, and it becomes like, it seems like it's my prescription. But when I first put them in, it definitely feels like something is not right. Like I have the wrong prescription, or I need to get my prescription updated. So is it potentially that, in terms of the degenerative eye stuff and everything, that it could actually be helping just with improving my overall vision?
Oh yeah, you can actually, yes, it does that a lot. A lot of times people take C60 and their eyes will get much better. Some people can get rid of their contact lenses completely. And also, I'm 60 years old and I don't use cheaters. Don't need to. So that's another thing, when you get older, the lenses get a little less, not so flexible. And I've used it for about 6 years. And so which I guess they were pretty good anyway, but so I don't even need to use cheaters at 60, which is pretty good.
I'll be glad when I could throw out my contacts.
Yeah, well, that might happen someday. I can tell you a little bit about the history of it for your guests.
Yeah.
It actually solves a long-standing mystery in astronomy. And there's a thing called DIBS, deep interstellar bands. And there's actually something between the stars absorbing in the infrared bands there. And it had to be really big molecule because it was pretty wide spectral absorption band. But there was a really question, what could survive in, the high radiation environment of outer space? C60, by the way, is very, very stable under pretty much any conditions. And so in 1985, Harry Croto, Richard Smalley, and Robert Curl actually discovered they had to actually make it to measure it, to confirm it has the same infrared. They actually had to build a super cold chamber with neon frost needles. And then they dropped like the C60 molecules on top of it, and then hit it with the infrared band. And then they saw that was one of the DIBS that they'd been searching for. And then they got a Nobel Prize in 1996 for that discovery in chemistry. Right. And basically it was really hard to make, and it wasn't until the early 2000s that it was actually started to be taking. The Botry study is really famous for that. And it essentially, when they tested on animals for toxicity, it essentially doubled their lifespan by completely preventing the occurrence of cancers, cognitive decline, and other diseases associated with aging.
Where do you guys derive it from? Where do you get your C60 from? What's it come from?
Oh, we have a laboratory in Texas actually that manufactures the C60, and they basically manufacture C60 the same way it's made in giant red stars. That's actually the origin. I don't know if you remember high school chemistry, or astronomy, but basically giant red stars are when the star runs out of hydrogen, starts burning helium into carbon. So they have really carbon-rich atmospheres, and then they also get really hot in the core, so they puff up, and a lot of the atmosphere starts going into outer space. And while it's doing that, because it's very carbon rich, a certain percentage of that carbon will turn into Buckminsterfullerenes. Which is, besides the actual science name is Buckminsterfullerene. And people may remember he was a polymath. He used to make those geodesic domes back in the 60s and 70s. And what's really interesting, in the late 70s, he actually predicted this molecule would be found and it would have great health benefits, which is kind of amazing, because that was, a decade and a half before it was discovered. And which is what can I say?
So we like to dabble in some conspiracy, and you said that he said that it was going to be found. Was there anything that was keeping C60 from the masses for years that you know of, or was it just someone like you having to discover it?
No, it was the guys that discovered it. They worked really hard to do it. It was just a very difficult task. First is to figure out what it might be. I think Harry Croto, who kind of was the guy behind it, he figured out it was like a molecule atom like this, some sort of caged carbon atom, and then he started his whole process. But it took a long time and a lot of experimentation before they found a way to make it. And they originally synthesized it. They actually had like a vacuum chamber, and they had a laser light zap the carbon in the vacuum, and then they examined the powder, and they found a molecule at the weight of 720, which would be the same as 60 carbon atoms. And then they found a way to kind of concentrate that, and then they did the neon frost needle test. That's almost like 0 degrees Kelvin there. It's about as close as you can get to it. And that's where they discovered it. So it was and there wasn't any conspiracy hiding it. It was just a very difficult thing. Now it's found in nature. You'll find a little bit like in lightning strikes. It's also made in like in large meteoritic impacts. For instance, the KT boundary, that's the boundary where, you know, the meteorite that hit the Earth and destroyed the dinosaurs. You actually find some, besides iridium-rich sediments, they also find buckyballs in that sediment. So it's a very durable molecule. And also a little bit is like 0.25% of like the burnt wick of a candle is C60.
And so you guys have coconut or MCT oil, olive oil, and avocado oil. What is the extraction process like? Is it extensive? Is there something through the process that makes it purple? Because I've heard you say that not all C60 oils are created the same, and if it's not, has that purple hue to it, there's probably something going on with the extraction process.
Oh, the color purple is when you dissolve C60 in a clear liquid, it turns purple. Now there's 2 extraction methods. The one we use is called sublimation, and that's like the cousin of evaporation. It's when a solid turns to a gas and then goes back to a solid when it cools down. And if you do it right and you're using that's basically what they do is they take a carbon rod in 2 carbon rods, and they run a current through it in a light helium atmosphere, like 1/10 the atmosphere of the Earth, and it turns the carbon into a powder. And if you do it right, you can turn about 10% of that carbon into fullerenes. And there's a couple, and what basically you got 2 types of fullerenes: carbon 60, carbon 70, and occasionally a little tiny bit of carbon 85. And to separate that is very, very difficult. So we use the sublimation method. When you heat it up to about 400 degrees Celsius, the carbon 60 molecule evaporates or sublimates into a gas and then floats to the other side of the sublimator. Usually have like argon, giving it a light breeze, and then it goes to the condensation plates, condenses, and we get 99.99% pure carbon 60, which is about the highest purity that you can get. Now there's another method that people use. They use solvents, which is methylbenzene or toluene, which is kind of a nasty toxin, but it does the job. And then they basically use that to separate the C60 from the C70 and the production ashes, and then they oven bake it. And you can get it up to 99.99%, but there's a tiny bit of solvent left, but that's okay. The thing you got to be really careful for, if you buy C60, you'll see somebody with 99.9%. That almost means certainly it's the sublimation. It's the solvent method, and you've got like 0.1% methylbenzene in there, which is not good. So always check the purity of any C60 product. If it's not 99.99%, pretty much don't take it.
Okay. And so is the oil just the vehicle, the transport vehicle?
Yeah, it's a transport vehicle. C60 is hydrophobic, so it actually has no solubility in water. And so you have to kind of dissolve like and like, since, oils are basically carbon-based, and C60 is all carbon, of course. It dissolves in oils. And what we did is we have all organic oils, and we chose healthy, stable oils. So that's why we have olive oil, of course, which is the Mediterranean diet. People know about that. It's pretty stable, can be stored, without refrigeration. The same with avocado oil. It's a really healthy oil for you, maybe even more so than olive oil. And it's also stable. It has a nice balance between omega-3s and omega-6s. And we also got MCT coconut oil. MCT chains for medium chain triglycerides. And your liver can turn those into ketones like that. And that gives you an instant energy source for your cells. And like my friend Gary, he had, type 2 diabetes. And so if you take MCT oil, it can, your liver will turn into ketones, and it acts as a flex fuel for your cells. So you don't get that glucose crash and starvation of the cells and damage to them. And it's also really great for athletes because it's like an instant energy boost if you take MCT oil. So those are the three we have. Now, there are some good oils, like let's say fish oils, hemp seed oils, even flaxseed oils. Those are pretty good oils, but they're really rich in omega-3s and they go rancid really quickly. So we wouldn't put that C60 in that because, by the time we shipped it to you when it got to your house, it'd probably be rancid, and rancid oil is really bad for you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's also why we put our bottles in brown glass jars, the same way they put beer in that, so it stops, decay. And we also recommend storing it in a dark cabinet. It's made in the dark. We have little boxes that it comes in, and which I should have had here so I could show you. And also and then we recommend storing in dark, and that'll be fine. Some things we don't want to put it in, like sunflower, safflower oil, obviously canola oil, soybean oil, cottonseed oil. All of these seed oils there have a really omega-6, high omega-6, and they're actually inflammatory. You shouldn't be eating seed oils. It's one of the biggest reasons why people are obese and have really bad health outcomes these days is all the seed oils, which is pretty much any fried food that you get. So that's another thing I want to say. C60 doesn't heal anything. All it does, it lifts the oxidative burden your cells are under, so your cells can operate efficiently. But it's not going to replace like good nutrition, good sleep, healthy lifestyle habits, and supplementation, all the other things you really need to do to stay healthy. C60 is really for people who really want to take control of their health and have positive health outcomes.
So well, first I'd like to say definitely we love your packaging. It is spot on, and we also really appreciate
the covers.
We love the camera covers for the computers. That's
yeah. We thought that was just a nice little fun gift for people.
That's a fun little touch. We really appreciate that. The different oils carry different benefits. Just in terms of the oils themselves, you're getting with any of those three, you're going to get the C60 benefits. For you personally, do you rotate through the different styles of oil, or do you stick to one? Because right now I enjoy the avocado oil, the C60 avocado oil, but I also take MCT oil. And then I wanted to ask about like in combination with like fish oil and supplementing like that. Obviously your body's kind of going to let you know if you're overdoing it with oil, but is there a certain balance to it? Can you combine all those things together?
Oh, you can combine them together. I personally use the avocado oil. In fact, that's one of the reasons I went to making C60 on my own, is because, I have a little bit of a sensitive digestive system. And so let's say if I took a couple tablespoons of olive oil, especially the extra virgin tums, I might have to go visit the bathroom after a bit. So with avocado oil, I don't have that problem. And they're both healthy. Now, MCT coconut oil holds a little bit less C60, about half of what olive and avocado, because they're short chain triglycerides. They're shorter. Olive oil and avocado oil tend to have 18 chain triglycerides, whereas the MCT is like 10s, 8s, and 6s. So it holds a little less, but it has the benefits for glucose processing people. And they're all stable, healthy oils, and they're all organic, farm-based or farm source, so we know where they're coming from. And we just want to have the best stuff because that's what we take for ourselves and our families.
And when you say, C60 doesn't cure anything, it just kind of helps your body run better. Do you have a hard time convincing people that after, they're having trouble with their eyes or inflammation and now they're feeling good or seeing better and they haven't changed much? Like, hey, you might want to eat better. You might want to worry about these other things. This isn't a magic pill.
Oh, yeah. Well, C60 kind of your cover. I mean, we can never be perfect. We can never eat totally organic because you go out sometimes, right? You can never, sometimes the glyphosates are out there and, you go out and eat something, right? You're going to get exposed. The air pollution, all the radiation now we're exposed to from, stuff, from the 5G to all the rest of it, right? The 4G and, everything else that's out there. So it just kind of helps cover that. Now, how C60 works on the biochemical level, its key thing is, well, it's an antioxidant, but it's really good at being an SOD mimic, and that's called superoxide dismutase. And your mitochondria actively uptake C60, and one of the biggest oxidative radicals in your body is superoxide, and that's an oxygen with an extra electron, and that's extremely damaging to your body. And C60 kind of acts as SOD, and superoxide dismutase is what the body uses to get rid of superoxygen. And as we get older, that goes down a lot. And so then the mitochondria, they're kind of independent organelles in your cells. They have their own DNA and they can self-regulate. So they have to turn down the furnace to protect themselves from burning out. And of course, when your mitochondria turn down, they're the powerhouse of the cell. They make ATP, they make pregnenolone, the precursor molecule for all the hormones, and they make a lot of the necessary precursor molecules for like DNA and RNA synthesis. So when that slows down, all of those other things slow down. And that's just the way it is. So when you take C60 replaces any missing SOD, the mitochondria can turn back on. So you get the amount of ATP you need, which is the energy molecule of the cell for like 95% of cellular metabolism. And it also, the organs that make, your various hormones, they can start producing pregnenolone again, which is the precursor molecule for all the hormones. So in your pineal gland, you're going to get more melatonin. A lot of customers report, whoa, I can sleep better. Also in the pituitary gland, you make human growth hormone and a whole bunch of master regulatory hormones. And then of course your thyroid makes T3 and T4. You've got your thymus, that makes some stuff. You got your adrenals, they make a whole bunch of stuff. They make especially the androgens that are turned into, testosterone, estrogen, or pregnenolone, depending on what sex you are. And so that's another thing. Customers report a large increase in libido once they take C60. That's one of the side effects.
Well, I can contest that. I definitely started having dreams once I took C60, and they've been consistent ever since, and I haven't changed anything up. So I had definitely noticed that right away, and I know Rich had noticed the same thing.
Yeah, it just kind of turns the clock back to when you were younger. Once the SOD gets back in there, or the C60 gets in there, it's an SOD mimic. It also takes care of the hydroxyl radical and peroxynitrite. But what it doesn't do, C60 doesn't interfere with like the nitric oxides, which are an important signaling molecule, oxidative radical signaling molecule. That's, dilates your capillaries or contracts them depending on the concentration. It also doesn't interfere with all the other signaling molecules the body uses, which are usually based around zinc, iron, or sulfur. So C60 doesn't interfere with those signaling molecules. That's why they did in other tests, they did testing for toxicity, and they gave 1 gram of C60 per kilogram. And they had no toxicity on the rats. If you try that with like vitamin D or vitamin E, or even vitamin C, it probably would have been fatal to the test animals. So C60 has no toxicity at any level. And there's reasons for that. There's a lot to think that C60 might have been the original antioxidant of life, because it potentially fits exactly into the groove of the RNA molecule and the side groove of the DNA molecule. And it was probably the original scaffolding upon which DNA chemistry started on Earth. And because it's kind of fat lithic, it loves fats, primitive oils, and amino acids, and primitive proteins. So maybe on the edge of some sea somewhere, it kind of just loaded up with all of that. And it's super antioxidant, so it protects against radiation, which is pretty prevalent on the early Earth. So that's a whole nother experiment to do, but I suspect you're going to see that done before too long.
And in terms of, go ahead, Jim.
Sorry, Rich. Have you noticed anyone have adverse reactions to C60, or is it pretty good all across the board?
Pretty good all across the board. There is some warnings we like to give out, and that's if you're taking blood thinners, you need to consult with your doctor. Probably even if you're doing hormone replacement therapy, you need to consult with your doctors, because the thickness of the blood is regulated by two things: your your pituitary hypothalamus complex and your adrenals, which produce mineral corticoids. And the two communicate with each other, to run your blood thickness. And so when you take C60, pregnenolone production goes up, and that underlying problem, which was making your blood thinner, the lack of mineral corticoids or control hormones from the pituitary hyperthymus goes away, and then your blood is too thin because you're not needing too much medicine. And also it's a hormone replacement therapy. Like our media, all things media person, Sierra, she had like a zero functioning thyroid when she started taking C60. In about 2.5 years of taking C60, she's got rid of 2/3 of her thyroid medicine. So she was getting and probably needs to do it again. She was getting too much. So she had to get extra testing. So if you're on hormone replacement therapy, you probably need to check it. Like we had one guy that he had this guy's 70 years old. So he had really low testosterone levels. So the doctor gave him some cream to, kick it up. So he was kicked it up to about 700. And then he started taking C60, and I guess he was getting a little frisky. He went to the doctor in the annual checkup, and he now had hormone levels, testosterone levels of 1200, which are pretty high for a 70-year-old. So the doctor took him off the cream. So C60 does have, so if you're doing hormone therapy, you probably need to get a little extra testing with your doctor.
That's interesting. I've heard it. Dr. Mark Gordon, he does a lot of stuff with veterans and PTSD, and he talks about the supplementing with pregnenolone to boost their testosterone, because they find a lot of times with some of these soldiers with PTSD, once they boost their testosterone levels or get them where they're supposed to be, a lot of the depression and anxiety and those sorts of things drop. So it's interesting to see that, or to hear that, C60 helps with that production as well.
Yeah, because you'll notice the things you'll notice about C60 when you start taking it. You'll get a great increase in energy and mental clarity. That's probably ATP, because your brain is 3 pounds, and it uses 20% of the energy of your body. It has more mitochondria than your muscle cells. And so if you get the mitochondria going, it's really great. But also C60 produces a lot of stem cell production, goes way up. And there's a whole process of that I could discuss. But basically, that's why it supports immunity, because it's, when you get a challenge to immunity, you need stem cells to turn into various types of, immune cells that you need to fight disease. And if you got C60, you got a load of stem cells, and it also helps fight inflammation. And inflammation is generally caused by oxidative radicals. And if there's too many oxidative radicals, then the macrophages come in and they put out the cytokines, and that brings in more neutrophils and stuff. We put out more cytokines, and you've got inflammation. So, and part of the things with inflammation is there's two types of inflammation. You've got acute and chronic. Acute is when you sprain your ankle, right? You've got the whole inflammation that swells up, so your ankle can't really move. That's really necessary. And the second thing is your dopamine levels are suppressed, because in nature, your body doesn't want you going out there and running around and doing stuff, right, while your ankle's repairing. So nature has a process when you're under inflammation, the dopamine, the motivation molecule, so to speak, of the body goes way down. And that's just so you'll lie there until you get healed. Now, if you've got acute inflammation being caused, let's say, by leaky gut syndrome or arthritis, or a variety of other things can cause chronic inflammation, then you still get that dopamine suppression. So then a lot of people notice when they take C60, all of a sudden, their energy comes back, their motivation comes back. They start hobbies that they used to do. They start running again, or doing exercise programs that they used to do before. So that's kind of one of the other benefits people see with C60. Your dopamine levels come way back up.
What kind of dosages are we talking about? Does it? I know that there's the recommendation on the product and the packaging. Is it something, if you're maybe a competitive athlete, that you may want to take more than what the recommended dose is, or is it based solely on your height and weight type of recommendation?
Well, it's basically based on weight and age. And those two, let's say if you're a 160, 170 pound healthy adult, let's say in your 30s, probably a teaspoon is going to be fine for you. But if you're, 170, adult, and you got a lot of gray hair, then you're probably looking more at a tablespoon. Or if you're an athlete, or you're going after a serious health condition, you might need maybe 2 tablespoons, but generally not more than that. Even though even if you took a liter a day, it still wouldn't have any toxicity on you. But you would just be wasting the C60. So
spend a lot of time in the bathroom.
Yes, exactly. So Yeah, so there's, and that's another thing. Yeah, by the way, C60 has no solubility in water. So there is a thing you can do polyhydroxynated, where you use hydroxyl radicals to make C60 water soluble, but that's super expensive. And it's really only found for laboratory grades. There's a lot of people out there selling, water soluble C60. What they're doing is they just have particles of C60 suspended in water, and particles of C60 will not provide any health benefits for you. It's only when C60 is dissolved in individual molecules in an oil, or maybe polyhydroxynated, then it has health benefits. Particles of C60, like any nanoparticle, can have irritating effects, and they don't have the same chemical behavior as an individual dissolved molecule. It's the same thing with silica. Silica is dissolved silica is a necessary nutrient for your body, right? You need it for a whole bunch of biological processes. But glass is made of silica, and if you grind glass up into nanoparticles and take it, it's not going to be absorbed and probably will cause some problems. And it's the same way with anything. You need to take it in the correct form to be bioavailable. Otherwise, you're just pretty much wasting your money, or worse.
And talking about that bioavailability, and before you said, if it's not 99%, you really don't want to mess with it. How long did it take you guys to figure out your protocol? Was it kind of right away? Did you know we need to do X, Y, and Z to get the product that we want, or was there a lot of trial and error?
Oh, well, actually what we did is, I researched the literature. There are just dozens and dozens of studies on, when they first came out, it doubled the lifespan of test animals. Well, then there was a whole bunch of other studies, and they've done studies with human skin in like the test tube. There hasn't been a full human study yet. By the way, there is actually one on post-traumatic stress syndrome. They found it really, really is effective for helping that. And there's several doctors doing research with C60 on that, but the studies haven't come out yet. But in like human skin cells against UV radiation, they had one set didn't get C60, the other set did. Exposed them UV radiation. The ones that had C60 were pretty much unaffected by the UV radiation. The ones that didn't, the controls, had significant damage. And they also had one with Japanese women, and they found by using it topically, it significantly reduced wrinkles. They had a C60 cream, so that's one. And most of the rest of it's been test animal studies. They've just dozens and dozens of those. They've had things like, they cause arthritis in rabbits' knees. And not only did the C60 get rid of the inflammation, but it stimulated cartilage production, which comes from stem cells, by the way. And so the rabbits actually regrew their damaged knees.
You guys do have pet products as well too. Is it a matter of just the packaging and the branding and the labeling, or is there something different in the stuff that you give to your pets?
Oh, no, it's exactly the same as what we give to people. We just do the packaging different. And depending on the pet, you want to make sure, like, for instance, birds should never be given avocado oil. Okay, that's another one. And then and then also generally found with cats and dogs, they can like the avocado, and they also like the olive oil. Those tend to be, you don't want to give dogs like coconut oil generally, or cats coconut oil, because coconut is actually in the grass family. It's not a nut, despite what Congress says. It's not a nut. Yeah, they actually, one of the FDA rules, because we make our stuff in a GMP and FDA approved production facility, so it meets all the health and regulation standards. And actually, Congress, has coconut as a nut oil, even though it comes from the grass family. It has nothing to do with nuts. Maybe Congress is a bit nuts. So yeah, it's just you don't want to give that, because happens when your dog or cat goes out and eats grass.
Yeah.
Might have a little bit of the run. So
yeah,
generally for like dogs and cats and horses and stuff, we recommend olive or coconut oil. Actually, for horses, we recommend coconut oil. It's in the grass family. Horses eat grass. If it eats grass, probably want to use the coconut oil. If it eats other things, olive oil and avocado oil, and no avocado oil for any birds.
So with the no avocado oil for the birds, did you know that because of your scientific background, or did you have a customer that had an accident?
No, we knew that. I knew that because I've had friends who've had pet birds.
All right.
And there's like rules that you got, no, never give them avocado. Do not give your pet bird avocado.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah.
we've mentioned a lot of benefits, and I'm sure you've got a bunch of testimonies. Has there been any people that kind of claim C60 help with this or with this that kind of just blew you out of the water, that like, here's a product that you thought was a good product, but someone came to you and, hey, this changed my life or something like that?
Oh yeah. I mean, like for instance, macular degeneration, it healed my macular degeneration. Well, it didn't heal it, it just lifted the oxidative burden so the cells could do it. And, by the way, the retina is actually part of the brain. So it healed my retina, or it helped my cells heal the retina, let the cells do it. So it also will help in the brain, guaranteed. But other things, yeah, we've been surprised. Like here's one, I'll just read it to you. I have been taking C60 Purple Flower over about 6 months. Before taking C60, I had lost 33% of my kidney function, indicated from blood work and lab results. Most recent blood results show none, not a loss of kidney function. That's a complete reversal of kidney loss of function. My kidneys are now operating at 100%. My internist says she can't explain the healing of the kidney damage. Either God has chosen to reverse the damage, or C60 Purple Power has worked at healing my kidney damage. And yeah, allegedly, just like macular degeneration, there's supposed to be nothing that can help you with it, right? You get kidney damage, it's just going to get progressive. Well, not for her and a lot of other customers. And we've had other people with the same thing. They had supposedly congenital liver damage caused by a genetic condition. Well, they took C60 and went 100% away. So maybe it wasn't a genetic, it wasn't a doomed genetic condition for you. It was that, because one of the things C60 really seems to assist at is mitochondria dysfunction. There's like dozens and dozens, because oh, did I lose you?
No, we're here.
We're here.
Okay, yeah, there was a little pop pick on my side. Yeah, one of the things is mitochondrial diseases are like the big thing now. They're starting to discover there's over like 3,000 different types. But that's because, mitochondria actually have like 3,000 genes, or 30, and most of them are stored in the nuclear DNA. There's only like 37 genes in the mitochondria. And so depending on what mitochondria in whatever organ tissue it is in your body, it produces, besides the ATP and the precursor molecules for RNA and DNA synthesis, it also produces, like in the other things, that produces in the hormone producing organs, it produces pregnenolone. And in every different tissue type, it produces tiny factory that produce stuff like neurotransmitters are made in the endoplasmic reticulum. But the mitochondria turns out a lot of the precursors because it can mass produce them. And so once your mitochondria go back and function, a lot of these so-called mitochondrial diseases, they're genetic and irreversible, go away.
In mentioning that one testimonial where the person said that their doctor couldn't explain, the reversal of the benefits. I mean, that in itself kind of blows my mind, where if they haven't been a part of it, they just can't explain it or understand it. On the flip side of that, have you gotten any feedback from doctors that are in support of this, or promoting it and prescribing it, but recommending it to patients and stuff like that?
Yeah, we have a large number of doctors that take carbon 60. And there's a lot of doctors, and they quote recommend it to their patients. But a lot of these are naturopaths, and also chiropractors and other people in the alternative, what you call alternative healthcare thing. So we do have a lot of medical MDs that actually do that, and they just and almost all of them they've tried it themselves, and they've discovered the real benefits, and then they research the literature, and then they make an informed decision. And that's really what C60 is for. It's for people that really want to take control of their health and can make their own medical decisions. And you get your second opinion, and also make your own. If somebody's going to tell you they're going to give you some sort of let's say treatment or injection or something, you really need to go out and research it yourself, and just don't take anybody's word for it. And that's the same with C60. Go out and do the research. And if you find the information, look at the testimonials, and then make your own decision about it, because it's really an adult choice. And if you're just a sheeple, it's probably not something for you.
Critical thinking is hard these days.
Yes, it is. They don't really teach it in the schools anymore.
No.
Have you noticed an uptick in sales since COVID happened? Like, has there been a lot of people kind of coming to the product? Because I know with us, we got right on our nutrition and supplementation right away and really took it seriously.
There's maybe been a slight increase. We really don't talk about the whole C thing on internet because of obviously for censorship things, unless you're loading up on BitChute or Brighteon or something. Otherwise that you're just endangering your channel. So because of the censorship that is really, really tight. And that's another thing, if truth really doesn't need protection. So if they're censoring people, there's a reason for that.
Yeah, fact checkers didn't exist until the truth started coming out.
Exactly. And then if you just follow the money, that's what I say. Follow the money. Who's paying the fact checkers? Whoa, it's the same things whose products they're supporting. Imagine
it's
that.
crazy.
Has any of your guys' information been censored?
No,
No.
we haven't. We were very careful on what we say. There's been other C60 people that have been censored, and the FDA's maybe come down on a little bit, but we're pretty careful. And the thing about C60 is there's two reasons. First off, there's so much scientific literature backing its health benefits that it would be a hard case, because if they lose one case, they lose like massive amounts of case in the nutrition level, right? Because if because it'll go to a jury trial and then they'll have to do that. And they know they could easily lose on C60. So they usually go off chasing lower hanging fruit. And also the level of C60, it's in FDA rules, for the big companies, they say anything that is below 0.1% doesn't need to be listed on the packaging, right? So they stick MSG and everything you can imagine into your food if it's under 0.1%. Well, C60, the highest concentrations is about 0.08%. That's all the oils can hold. We just take the oils to saturation, super saturation, and then back off a little from there. That's what we got. So technically we don't have to list C60 in our products, and it's below the FDA, little barrier there. So it's really something it's not low hanging fruit. They have plenty of other people they can go chase around and go after.
And you had mentioned, have a science background. That's what kind of brought you to C60. And, you take it, it helps your eyes. You notice the benefit. You want to start producing it. And then you start producing it and you realize, well, man, we got to get brown bottles. We got to do different types of packaging.
Oh, yeah.
How was that for you as a business owner, thinking, oh, we got this great product, but then you realize there's a lot of other stuff that goes into the back end and troubleshooting which packaging and stuff like that?
Well, I pretty much, when I first started it, it was first I did it for myself and it helped my friend Gary. And so I just started making it for family and friends. And then, my alternative healthcare practitioners started using it, and then they recommended to their people. So I was like a C60 milkman. I just used to go around, but also other people. I had a little store on the internet, little store and stuff. People bought it. And then one day some big Sarah Westall and Cliff High mentioned it. Cliff High mentioned it saved his and his wife's life. And then, sales went through the roof in one day. And it was a one-man show. So I worked 14-hour days for the next month to pretty much fulfill those orders. And then it just went from there. And that kind of opened up the C60 market. There was only just a handful of us doing it and using it and being available for people. And then it just exploded. And of course it's like the CBD business, it became a problem. Most of the original larger producers of C60 products, they make a quality product for their customers, pretty much all of them. And, but the thing is, since they became popular, we've had all these fly-by-nighters come in who are producing like something, blank and cheap. And, they basically don't have any C60 in them. Or they charcoal and C60. Well, basically, charcoal has like 0.1% C60 in it, but that's not 99.99%. It's quite the opposite. So you just had all these, fly-by-night operators looking to make a quick buck came into the market. And also C60 is expensive. The sublimation process is really expensive. It's more expensive by weight than gold by a large amount. And so that's why C60 products are expensive. And so if somebody's out there selling a cheap C60 product, there's probably a reason for that.
It's good to know. got to watch out for the charlatans these days.
Mm-hmm.
So you said you were making it, started off making it for yourself. I envision, like, do you have like a mad scientist lab at your house where you have the ability to do these things? Or is it something that if you have a scientific background that you could do these things on your own?
No, well, yeah, you could probably do those things on your own if you knew what you were doing and you had a science lab. I had a science lab, so I had a nice sterile production environment which I could just set stuff up and do it, and it was already set up in that level. And now we have productions made by a professional company that mixes stuff, so they got the good production practices standard, and they got FDA approval, Costco approval, all those approval for their, because they make stuff for other people. And so that's a really quality production facility. And so that's where we produce it these days. And it's gone. And we have, we've over the years, you produce it in large batches, hundreds of gallons at a time, stir it for a day. It takes a long time. Originally, we were stirring for like a week and a half to dissolve the C60 crystals. So, and you have to stir it in the dark because you don't want to have oxidative damage on it and everything. And there's a whole process on it. And today we're a manufacturer. We take our part. We have certificates of analysis for everything coming in, the oils, the C60, and then we make the product. Then it's tested. It's tested for microbiotics, for C60 concentration, third-party testing on everything that goes out. We've gone full legitimate in every way production facilities, so that what you're getting in the bottle is what's on the label, and it's third-party verified.
That's such a huge thing for supplements too. I always tell my clients and athletes that, when they're asking about supplements, what they should take, or bring something to me and ask me what my thoughts are. That's one of the first things I always ask or recommend is, make sure that it is third-party tested, because then, at the very least, that you're getting a higher quality supplement than something you're buying at, say, Walmart or GNC or Target or whatever. Look for that third-party tested approval stamp on the bottle or packaging.
Yeah, because you can see that guys like Mike Adams, the health ranger. I don't know if you've heard of him. He has his own little testing lab, and he tests, new supplements and stuff, and he finds all kinds of crazy stuff in a lot of them. So you got to be careful.
Yeah. And that's why so many people can, in the Olympics or professional sports, use that as not an excuse, but that's one of their first lines of defense when they get in trouble for taking a banned substance, is that it was they unknowingly took it in a supplement that they were taking, and it wasn't third-party tested, or the quality of it wasn't that good. And so they miraculously test positive for a steroid when they say they were taking a whey protein or whatever it might be.
Yeah, that's the truth. Well, C60 isn't banned by any sports organizations. We've
Sure.
inquired, but they've never gotten back because it's all carbon. It's 100% carbon. It's like diamond or graphite or or carbon black. It's just 100% carbon. So, and it doesn't interfere with, it doesn't interact with any minerals, supplements, nutrients, drugs. Doesn't interact. All it interacts with is kind of a cousin of diamond. It only interacts with really high energy oxidative radicals. And I mean, you can actually take the C60 molecule and they fire it at 11,000 miles an hour at a steel barrier in a vacuum, of course, and it just bounces off. And it's really resistant to oxidative damage. If it's because it's found in the KT boundary. It's been sitting there for millions of years, and it's also found in a tiny percentage in shungite. 0.2%. A lot of people say, oh, shungite's all C60. No, there's a little bit of C60 in shungite, though it's buried in the matrix. But it's not, C60 is not the main constituent of shungite, by the way. It's only a tiny percentage of it. That's a common myth. Oh, C60 is also not created by AI to be nanobots to take over your mind so you can be controlled by aliens. Doesn't do that either.
You got to pay extra for that.
But there is something interesting. We had one of the Cliff High scientists was using our MCT coconut oil with C60 in it, and they work in the computer industry, so they have lots of graphene hanging around. And they found in the test tube, when they put graphene in the MCT coconut oil with C60 in it, it basically just dissolved away, like oxidized back to carbon dioxide. So
really,
yeah. So that's if you're worried about graphene oxide, something to think about, because C60 can do the job. It's we also often call it the Swiss Army knife of antioxidants, because it can do like the job of SOD. And it's interesting, like SOD, usually superoxide dismutase to get rid of superoxygen. Usually superoxide dismutase will take the superoxygen, turn it into hydrogen peroxide, and then catalase takes the hydrogen peroxide, turns it back into a water and an oxygen. With C60, it actually takes the electron from superoxygen and gives it to one of the hydrogen ions on inside of it. And then the oxygen goes back to, superoxygen goes back to being regular oxygen and can go back into the Krebs cycle. And so it doesn't actually use up the catalase in that cycle. So actually people or test animals, they found taking C60, the actual catalase levels rise because it's not being used. And so, which is also another, and it also does like the job of glutathione when dealing with the hydroxyl radical throughout the body, throughout the cells, and certain jobs of CoQ10 it can do. But mostly in just dealing with the high energy oxidative radicals, it doesn't interfere at all with the signaling molecules. And so a lot of people, like for instance, athletes that take C60, DOMS will go down, delayed onset muscle soreness. That's like 2 days after your exercise. That's when you hurt the most. So like we had some college football players taking C60, and they go to spring training, and like everybody else would be like wiped out, lying around, and they're young guys, and after about 45 minutes to an hour, they were ready to go out on the town. And so off they went, where the rest of the guys were just lying around in pain. And eventually some of the assistant coaches asked what was going on, and they told them about C60. So they started taking it, and a lot of the players in the team started taking it. Unfortunately, they didn't win the champions that year, but they probably felt better in any case.
C60 can do a lot, but it can't throw or catch a football.
Yeah, that's true. Though it does help in the horses. I'm not going to say it's not my C60 company, but there is a C60 company, friends of mine. Most of us C60 guys know each other, the legitimate ones. And he's been supplying some horses in some not to be named country, not this one, by the way. And they've gone from like mid pack to winners on C60, because one of the things, C60 delays the onset of of lactic acid buildup, because it's an antioxidant. You start to get the lactic acid buildup because the natural antioxidants produced by your body can't keep up with the amount of various oxidative radicals that are being made. Well, C60 gets in there and helps that, so it really slows the lactic acid buildup. So that means you're going to run faster and longer, you're going to lift more weights, or whatever athletic endeavor you're on, you're going to give that little edge over your competitors. We had a local guy go from in the motorcycle racing, the plus 50 thing. He was always like, trailing out here in the front range for motorcycle racing, dirt biking type. Almost for some reason, the champions from Canada and United States kind of retire here. So he was always, mid pack or lower pack, and with C60, he won the championship against all those guys in the plus 50 class. So he was pretty happy with that. It just gives you that extra little bit of endurance to kind of get the edge.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm an ultra marathoner. I haven't had any races since I've started taking the C60, but hearing these sorts of things, I'm now definitely even more curious to see. And I was also thinking, as you're talking, I wonder if this would almost be something, you're running say 100-mile race, this would be something that would be beneficial to take multiple times throughout the course of the race, as opposed to just, getting up in the morning and taking your normal dose, but along the way at different aid stations, maybe 25, 50, 75 miles, take another teaspoon as you go.
Yeah. So he actually, that's what he did. He used the C60 and hydrogen gas water. That's okay. Another, if you use hydrogen gas therapy and C60, it's like a symbiosis. It increases it. So he had a person giving him the stuff, so he get like a little shot of C60 and hydrogen gas water every time he came around, and that just supercharged him. And because C60 is like a hydrogen gas sponge, and so it retains the hydrogen. Because mostly hydrogen, you do hydrogen gas therapy, it's gone in your body in 11 minutes, right? Poof, just evaporates away. But with C60 grabs it. C60 is like a hydrogen gas sponge. Like I told you, I took the hydroxyl or the hydrogen ions inside of itself. It also likes to glob up hydrogen gas, and then it uses those to neutralize oxidative radicals. So it's so hydrogen gas and C60 a little bit at a time during the competition, just fantastic.
Good to know. Where do you get some of this hydrogen water?
Well, there's several types you can do it. Probably there's one, basically the main type people have is they have like a pill with magnesium,
Okay.
and it's a let's say, and it's like a powderized form, and you put it in water and it bubbles like a little fizzy thing, and then it turns the magnesium turns to oxygen, magnesium oxide, and then the hydrogen gas is released, and then you drink that just when the fizziness stops. You probably don't want it fizzing in your stomach. But anyway, I guess you could if you wanted to. That would probably be effective too. Might be a little bit unusual. And then the other one, they have you can of course buy a hydrogen gas machine that makes hydrogen gas, and you
Okay.
breathe it. And those are like $4,000 or $5,000. And there's also, if you go look around on the internet, they have one where it's like a drinking glass, and they have a couple little electrodes in the bottom of it. And so while your water's in the drinking glass, it's doing electrolysis and charging up your water with hydrogen gas. Just don't use that with smoking, by the way. That might be, you might have an unexpected surprise.
It's good to know. Is there a specific magnesium tablet that you would recommend, or brand or anything?
Yes, there is, but it's not with me right now. I think
Okay.
it's Ace One. Let me hold on a second.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can grab these guys, because I do like them. They're a good brand.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I had to raid my wall of vitamin supplements. So that's Active H2.
Okay.
Active H2. That's the best one on the market, I think. They have a really fast dissolving. That's the magnesium type, a fast dissolving magnesium tablet, and that's the one that works really well.
I'd never heard of such a substance.
Yeah, it's just a little magnesium. They dissolve it with something else, so it goes poof, turns into a fizzy bubbly thing, and then you just drink it.
Sweet. I'm looking forward to trying that out. Put that in the morning water. A new concoction there, Jim.
Always
Then you
getting
get your
upgrades.
magnesium, which is one of the things. Yeah, magnesium. That's the other thing that I do, because we have on the C60 Purple Power channel, we really talk about health, and not just about C60, but different health conditions, what you can do to make it better. And C60 can help and support that, but you got to do the basics like nutrition. And like one of the things we always talk about is, in our sad diet, standard American diet, people are just so deficient in magnesium, vitamin D, because they sit around watching screens all day. Sorry, guys. And in vitamin D and to a certain extent iodine. Got to be careful in the iodine, you can overdose, but the other two you're pretty much safe. And also when you have a really high vitamin D level, you're very resistant to various viruses and other diseases. That's why people get sick in the wintertime, because we're inside, we're wearing clothes. Sunlight shining on our skins makes vitamin D. If you're inside wearing a bunch of clothes, well, obviously you're not getting much sunlight on your body, and so your vitamin D levels go down, and that makes your body susceptible, because vitamin D does over like 500 different biochemical processes that are really key to health. And in fact, I was a teacher when I was started, I don't know, apprentice teacher, whatever you want to call that. The first, they set me down and they said, then they, what you do being a teacher is they gave me a vitamin D bottle and say, take this, because you're working in a germ factory and you need to keep your vitamin D levels up to stay healthy.
They didn't do that when I started teaching.
Oh, well, you should have got the right founding teacher. He was a really old guy. He'd been around since ever.
Was that here in Colorado?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I used to teach in Jeffco and Adams.
Can you had mentioned that you went to UC Denver as well. Are you lifelong Colorado?
No, I've been here 30 years.
30 years. Have you noticed much of a change in the Denver area, or has it been the same?
A zillion more people?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, when I was here 30 years ago, I could like drive from one side of the city to the other, do an appointment, come back, no problems. There wasn't a traffic difficulty. Now, if you want to go from one side of the city to the other during the day, you have to plan it, right? You can't do it. I could drive back and forth in half a day, right? Easy. It was like nothing. It was just like going across town. But now it's like, now it's like, it reminds me of like a mini, the 25 reminds me of a mini 405, because I lived in LA for years. It's just like, whoa, it's, and we're also starting to get a little bit of the smog. Some days, we get the brown cloud out there that you see. And so, I think the population level is probably quadrupled since I moved here.
Yeah. Yeah, I really noticed the difference in the smog, especially going from winter to summer. I mean, obviously the fires in here in Colorado sometimes, but coming from the west too has an impact on that. But one of the things I've noticed the past couple of weeks, if not months, is the difference between how just it seems crisper in the wintertime than it has been the past, couple of weeks or months. Like I was saying, it just seems like it's a lot more smoggier and hazier lately.
Yeah, well, they just, like here, Jeff, I'm in like next to Jeff, I'm in Morrison, but it's Jeffco County. And what they, the county commission, I could tell you a whole story is I used to know a county commissioner, planning commission guy. And, all you have to do is slip them a few $100 and you'll get anything approved. And so they've just built in just huge levels of, the roads and streets are only designed for a certain population density. But these people, oh no, more people, more tax revenue, right? So they've put more people than the roads and streets can support by a large amount. And then people have traffic and other problems. And also the roads go bad. I mean, much quicker than they normally would. So it's like, you're living in some third world country level roads. It's kind of sad, but that's just, greed and stupidity, which there's no monopoly on that for sure.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out where all that THC tax revenue money is going to, because it doesn't seem like it's going to infrastructure.
No, where does that all go? It goes to, supporting bureaucrats' salaries and we don't really need you administrators. Go away.
Yeah. Okay, we have a couple rapid fire questions. I got one more for you though before we get into those. You were talking about so many benefits to the C60 Purple Power, and then you just tipped me to a new supplement here. What else is in your daily quiver? I know you mentioned vitamin D. I've got a cabinet full of stuff that I've taken, but I'm always looking to upgrade and hear different people's performers like yourself, what you're taking. Is there anything out of the ordinary besides what you've mentioned so far?
Yep. Intermittent fasting.
We're on that too.
Still on that right now. Haven't eaten yet. So yeah, intermittent fasting. I gained a little weight over the years. I'm not perfect. I don't eat things. Sometimes I go out, drinking excessively with friends and that, like alcohol is like liquid sugar, just to let people know. And that, so I got a little, and, I tried the things like the 3 whites. You get rid of like white flour, cheese, and sugar. And, I did this and that. And it'd go down, but it'd go down to a certain level and stop, right? You just hit and there's still, a little bit of extra down there, certainly more than I need. And then I discovered intermittent fasting. And I just plunged down past that barrier. In fact, for a while there, I was, when I was really, really good at and perfect doing it, I went back to the same weight I was in high school. So if you have weight problems, just do intermittent fasting. You probably start like maybe a 10-hour day. You only eat during the 10 hours. And because, part of it, I'm just going to give the spew for it. Look at the average person gets up, maybe gets up. So at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever it is, they eat breakfast, right? And then they go to work and then they have lunch, right? Maybe a snack or two in between. By the time they get home, 6 or 7, 8, then they eat. And then maybe they're watching something late at night and they have that late night stack at 10 o'clock. Then they go to bed. Well, you've just got your digestive system working 18 hours a day. If you went out and worked 18 hours a day, you'd be exhausted. Well, if you work your digestive system 18 hours a day, it's exhausted too, and it can't function well for you. So you get leaky gut, you get inability to really absorb nutrients properly. So, and all the consequences of that. And so, you need to don't work your digestive system any more than you do. So usually, and, we could get away with some stuff when you're younger, but once you get a little bit of gray hair, you need to you got to change what you've been doing. And so I'm right now, I do this 6 hour, I'm on the 6 to 4 hour fast. I mean, that's for I only eat 6 to 4 hours during the day. And then pretty much the rest of the day, it's water. Coffee, by the way, will break your fast, just to let you know. Tea won't, green tea or something won't, but coffee will. Of course, no sugar or anything else in that. But and that's what I found. And if I'm bad, one day, then maybe I'll shorten it up because, nobody's ever perfect. You're not looking for absolute, fanatical perfection. You just kind of do it. And sometimes I'll go to like 1 meal a day. In fact, the older you get, like if you're in your 30s, you can get away with a 10-hour fasting window. You go in your 40s, you can probably do an 8-hour, window when you eat, and the rest it's fasting. What time you get up? I just turned 60. It's like, basically 4 to 6 hours. There's not a lot of difference in that. And then when you get to 70s and above, you're basically 1 meal a day. And that's for that's optimal health for your digestive structure. That's just the way it works for people. So that's one thing. Also, other things I do, I obviously take, multivitamins, multi-mineral, especially those trace minerals, really important. Try to do organic foods as much as possible. They found that if people ate nothing but organic fruits and vegetables, and of course avoid the glyphosate in the grain, they could reduce their pesticide herbicide burden by 90%. Just 2 weeks eating I guess organic.
You break my heart a little bit when you say that having black coffee breaks your fast. I'm gonna have to work on that one a little bit. But we've been doing some. We're lifelong wrestlers. Grew up wrestling, so back in the day, intermittent fasting was called wrestling season, and then it became a thing like 10, 15 years ago. But like Jimmy said, when all this started going on, I said to him we should start paying more attention and tracking our fasting. So we've been using an app, and we had Doug Orchard on, who was a director who made a movie about fasting. And so we were definitely firm believers in intermittent fasting or time restricted eating, and really narrowing down that window as much as possible. And get a lot of strange looks from people when you try to tell them they don't need to eat 3 meals a day, or that breakfast isn't the most important meal of the day.
That's
but
right. Yes. Yeah. And I actually did the testing on myself because there's a lot of questions I had. And I've done the things where I'll eat the exact same meals. One will be like 10 hours apart, 10-hour eating window because of whatever reason. And then I'll do the same meal like with a 4-hour window. And on the 4-hour window, I lose weight. On the 10-hour window, maybe having to gain weight. Same exact dietary intake. And then I also discovered, that's how doing experiments, I discovered that that the black coffee was kind of the same as breaking the fast because it gets that glucose processing. So there must be something in coffee which stimulates the glucose release, insulin release for processing glucose. So that's just, which is unfortunate because I love my coffee too. And so this time sometimes I'll break the fast with the paleo coffee or some C60 and olive oil or avocado oil in there, and or coconut oil. All three of them are fats. So you don't, because what you want to do, another thing on intermittent fasting, just for people who are listening, you want to eat your first meal be fats and proteins. If the most you can fats and proteins, because that doesn't break your fast. And then do the carbs in the final meal of the day.
Good to know. When do you take your C60?
Usually about 12 to 1 o'clock when I break my fast.
Okay.
That's the first thing I do when I break my fast. Oh, by the way, if you've never taken an oil straight before, you probably want to take it with food, because you will be going to the bathroom, visiting the bathroom, possibly. Once your body adapts to taking an oil, your pancreas will kind of learn, oh, here it's going on. I need to drop these enzymes. The liver says, oh, right, I need to drop this bile, to digest the fats. Then it's okay, right? Your body will adjust. But when you first use it, if you never used a straight oil before, probably take a little bit with food in the morning. Also take your C60 in the morning, because if you take it late at night, it has a little bit of a stimulatory effect, a bit like caffeine. So, you don't want to take caffeine right before you go to sleep. I know there's people that can do that, but I'm not one of them.
Me either.
So, Ken, you were mentioning coffee. That is our first rapid fire question. I know you said you like to do a little bit of the paleo style. So how do you take your coffee and how do you brew it?
Well, I actually have one of those little, I don't know, what do you call that? Espresso Italian little coffee things. So I make that, and then I mix half the espresso coffee with hot water. And then maybe I'll put some coconut oil in there, or avocado oil. Olive oil is a little too sharp to put in your coffee in the morning, I think. So, but the avocado is nice. It of course floats. And then usually I throw in a little bit of butter too, because that's one thing. When you're taking fats, you need to take a whole bunch of the different types of fats. So, sure, avocado oil actually has in its fat profile is almost like human breast milk, but but there's other fats in human breast milk. So you need to throw a little bit of butter in there, and fish oils are really good for you. One thing I want to say that I always say on my shows, if you're taking fish oil or hemp seed oil or flaxseed oil, always buy it in the refrigerated section of your health food store. Never, ever buy fish oil or hemp oil or flaxseed oil off the shelf. It will be rancid if you do, and that will screw your health up. Always, always, always buy it in the refrigerated section, please.
Yeah. And I would also add to that too, almost if you're buying fish oil and capsules, you're probably just wasting your money.
Oh, yeah.
Want it in liquid form for sure.
Yeah, because people don't know, a lot of them, but they just need to listen. But one of the other things, you got to go out and research stuff yourself. I mean, we have our shows, we do a lot of research for you, but and anything I say, take it as as information, and then confirm it yourself and do your own research on anything. Never take it, doesn't matter who they are, whatever they tell you, but trust but verify might be the best idea on that.
Yeah. And we are our own science experiment. So, you have a lifetime to dabble and figure out what works best for you, and what works best for me or what works best for you may not work best for Jimmy. And so you got to figure out how to fine tune it, what works best for yourself. Ken, do you have any daily practices or rituals that you do regularly to level up on a regular basis and show up as the strongest version of yourself?
Oh, well, I've got one of those shake machines, and which I get on. It's a pretty good. It's not, it really gets you going. Also gets you regular, by the way, in the morning. And then I've got a pulse harmonic. I don't know if people ever heard about these. It's sold locally, or it's produced locally. This is the pulse harmonic. Ooh, let me turn that. Here we go. Off with that background screen. And this is pulse harmonic. It's pulse harmonics. It gives like a full like big pulse, a broad wave pulse. It's like an electrostatic pulse because it's just a DC pulse. They have it, and you put in a pad, and they also have like coils that you can attach to the back of it. That's already for like a knee injury. I had a pretty bad knee injury last fall. I'm doing pretty good now. I had a one wheel. Anyway,
oh, no.
Yes, and I crashed it. Yeah, 60-year-old should not be using, or 59-year-old should not be using one wheels. I gave it to my nephew, who was much younger and a little bit more balanced than I was. I hit some bumps, and oh well. Anyway, that stuff happens. But the pulse harmonic it really helps the healing, and it also brings up heart rate variability, which is what causes heart attacks when you don't have the variability. So like, half an hour on that. I also have a beamer. I won't pull that off. That's beamers they're a device that actually causes your capillaries to expand. So I do that every now and then. I'm not perfect on anything, by the way. In fact, sometimes I'll like once every week or every 2 weeks, I just won't take any supplements at all that whole day and stuff. And usually I'll fast like 1 day a month just to get things back in order and things. I kind of do everything in moderation, even moderation on occasion.
Yeah.
We still go out with friends, have a good time, and do excessive stuff. That's why C60 is also does have a moral hazard, because if you take like a big shot of C60 before you go drinking and right after you go drinking, no hangover. So there's it's a moral hazard there. Yeah, so that's actually when I originally did it. I used to make like little 1 ounce shooters, and I was actually in the cannabis business. I was like an assistant grow master. I found that if I gave the C60 to them, they could use it if they went out and partying. Plus, but whenever because when I was running, they'd change it off. Sometimes I'd have to be the guy running it, right? When I'd be the guy on the site, the other guys would be off doing whatever. And I found if I gave all my employees C60, I would get like 35% more productivity out of them. They'd stop bitching and moaning, and they just go out and work. They were happy. So I said, whoa, C60. If you're an employer and you want to A, reduce your healthcare costs, and B, get more productivity out of your employees, C60 is the way to go.
No.
Can you speak our language more and more as this conversation goes on?
Ken, what are you listening to right now? Music, audiobooks, podcast, reading anything?
Podcast and the various things online. YouTube is all the people that I used to watch on YouTube are got their asses kicked off of YouTube. So now I'm going to BitChute, Brighteon, Rumble, NewTube. There's a whole, they've just been scattered across the landscape. So you kind of have to track down the people that you used to like. But that's the same way. Also, the other thing, the number one thing you could do to improve your brain chemistry is stop watching television. all of it. Just cold turkey, no more television for the rest of your life. Throw that thing away. You can get, you can get your news, you can choose your news and information, and you don't have to deal with look, they went to digital so that they could put subliminals and other mind control technologies into the television. That's why they went to digital from the analog systems they used to have. And there is no way, because propaganda and mind control, it doesn't go for your frontal lobes. It goes for the brainstem, that fish brain, reptile brain deep inside, and just goes right past and manipulates you and turns you into a droid, basically. So if you really want to get back control of your health and your mind, stop watching television. And it's the same with movies. I was talking like Jay Widener, and he says like the new movies, they just mess with it. It causes the brain to race. It gets them like unbalanced. But then he can go watch one of the old movies, like in the 90s or the 80s or something. It doesn't have the same effect. So they're putting something in the movies too to like mess with your brain, some sort of super subliminals, because most of the digital movie theaters now are digitals. They're not necessarily film anymore. And so they can put this propaganda subliminal mind control stuff in. I'm sorry, it's, if you don't want to have your mind controlled, you're going to have to give up that television, and maybe modern movies too. And they're pretty sad anyway. All they are is remakes of other movies,
Right.
which are better, and comic book characters. Come on, give me a break. Why are there some independent, movie producers who can make me something new that is exciting, not just the same old rehash or retarded comic book stories? Sorry. I know some people like them, but it's kind of getting boring. If I want to Marvel comics, I'll just read my old copies,
Exactly.
They're now worth a whole bunch of money, by the way.
Ken, it's interesting you say that. I am a film and television student, and the first 2 years, right, they give you all your film history classes, and you learn, right, the film industry was based off of propaganda. Same with news. During Vietnam, there were 70 CIA agents that were newscasters. And, I was talking to some of the kids, and, they were talking about the news and stuff. I'm like, you guys are film and television students. You already know that this is propaganda. How could you still watch that shit? Like, this is what we're going to school for. It's how to brainwash people, and you're still watching it and think it's real.
Yeah, And by the way, the CIA still controls the media.
100%.
Yeah, after 47, 48, when they reorganized everything, the War Department became the Defense Department. They created the Air Force, and they took all the control of media and gave it to the CIA, which is more of a private corporation run by Wall Street than it's like the Federal Reserve. It's a private corporation. The CIA is actually a private corporation. They tell you it's the government agency. No, it's a private corporation, and that's by effectively the way it works. And you just have to realize that. And if you don't want to be mind controlled, then don't watch it.
Nope. Got rid of my TV in 2007. Haven't looked back.
Yes, very good. I still have friends and family, I'll go over to the house and just see the stuff, and it's just like messes with my mind. Anyway, I find it indignant that the advertising is interrupted by programming. It should just give me all advertising, and then I wouldn't have to worry about it, right? Come on. In a lot of places in Europe, they made a law that only you could have the program has to be unbroken, and then the advertising is like at the end of the program before the next one starts, like a movie theater, right? They don't interrupt your movies with the damn advertising. It's just so insulting.
Yeah. That was a big thing too. I think it was in 94 when we first hosted the World Cup here in the United States, that we were going to run the games continuously without any commercials. I remember that was like a big a hubbub about how it was almost like blasphemous that they were going to run sports nonstop without running commercials. And then what they did was they just put like a Snickers logo on the screen, it'd flash up there subliminally every like 45 seconds or whatever it was. But yeah, it's crazy. And like I said, I got rid of my TV in 2007, and I went home in April, and I was just appalled I kept yelling at my mother to turn the television off, because it seemed like every other second there was a pharmaceutical commercial that was popping up on the commercials.
Yeah, and big pharma has become incredibly powerful. And not only is every other commercial pharma, it's like the number one revenue source for the television, which obviously what are they going to tell you? Whatever the pharma or their fact checkers they hire do. But also it's the number one contributor down to the guys in the Congress. It's even more than like the Defense Department, more than Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, the rest of those dudes. They don't even give as much money to Congress, bribes to Congress as campaign contributions, whatever it is, as big pharma does.
It's called lobbying, Ken.
I'm sorry. I guess I got to get the name right, the nomenclature there.
Well, I know we're in a safe space here, so this is going to be a fun one. Before 2020, this was a lot more lighthearted, but some people don't like to dabble in this. But I know we're in a good place here. So our last question is: do you have a favorite conspiracy theory?
Do I have a conspiracy theory?
Have you ever seen aliens?
Yes, actually, I have seen aliens and lots of UFOs. So, yeah, I guess that's probably some nasty ones riding. Well, it's not a conspiracy theory, but yes, there are some nasty ass aliens running things behind the scenes for a lot of our history. But fortunately, there's some other aliens that come by and kick their ass, and they're no longer running things like they used to. That's why kind of the controls mechanism's gone off the rail lately, if you haven't noticed. There's, they've kind of lost their restraint because their masters have been like their asses kicked off planet. And so now they're just going to try to take over on their own, and it's not going to end well for anyone. So, oh well, that's probably my favorite conspiracy theories. But yep, but yes, there's people and I have seen aliens walking the streets of Denver, just to let you know. And you can see them if you got the infrared cameras, you can see them pretty good. Just to let you know, they're about $40,000, but a good infrared camera will show you all kinds of crazy stuff. And there used to be, by the way, conspiracy theory. There used to be, if you go, CIA has its headquarters up by the tech center. And there's this guy, I'm not going to say his name or anything, but he used to sit up there and like with a camera and film stuff because you can't see it because when you drive in, you can't see anything. But you can look down on him, and he once filmed like one of those tall whites getting out of CIA headquarters and going into a car. You saw it, and I think filmed it too.
Oh, well, I got some researching to do tonight. Thank you, Ken.
Ken, you know anything about? You ever heard of the mud flood?
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. They got rid of what do you call that?
Tataria.
No, actually, I think the whole Tatarian thing has more to do with the Genghis Khan flood. When Genghis Khan swept through Central Asia, there was a whole culture that existed from, from almost from China to the Caspian to the Black Sea, and they completely annihilated it. Pretty much, the ones that didn't die became slaves, and the whole culture was wiped out. And that's probably what people are referring to. It probably wasn't a mud flood. It was more like Genghis Khan and his hordes of psycho killers who basically just they just wiped them out. That was it. It was just gone.
Yeah, we've been geeking out on the mud flood and lost civilizations and searching all the high schools in Denver because we're from New Jersey and there are no high schools in New Jersey that look like that. So we've been checking out all the high schools.
Oh, this is such a young town. Basically the bars and saloons and the courthouse are the oldest things in the building. Everything else in this town is so young you won't find anything.
Yeah.
This is just a mud puddle until people moved here.
Awesome. Well, Ken, thank you so much for your time today. I really love this conversation and the information you threw at us. Sweet.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and hope to be on again.